Alzheimer's is not a name for every single dementia there is. That they're now realising that there are different dementias and they're addressing it now.
That side of the brain's perfect, he says, but the front there seems to be disappearing a wee bit.
I didn't know what frontotemporal dementia was, not a clue. I'm still learning.
Dementia is complex and varied, and because people don't exhibit certain types of symptoms doesn't necessarily mean to say that they won't have dementia.
It's not a nice place to be, and it won't get any better.
There is absolutely no treatment at this point in time for Pick's disease. There is absolutely nothing.
Dementia is not just all about some old person being forgetful, because it really isn't. It's a complex set of behavioural problems.
Being the sole carer of a wife with frontotemporal dementia, it puts a strain on life.
People haven't a clue what dementia is unless it's happening to you.
Catherine's diagnosis ultimately was PCA, posterior cortical atrophy. She was 55 and her symptoms were considerably before that.
You have then to start to think again, what can you do? And very few things you actually can. And that's a horrible thing when you're waking up, you think it again, it's going to be better, and it's not.
Catherine wasn't really a career person, she was an academic.
I was still a teacher when I got, you don't get it, but I realised that something was wrong.
There was a range of viewing that just weren't open to her, so I would see in a kind of U-shape. Anything above the U-shape she could see, and this U-shape was getting higher and higher. And that's pretty much how it is now. She is registered partially blind.
It's my brain, it's not my eyes. It's like it's not plugged in to what I'm seeing.
We were going through the Paris Underground in a big busy stairway, and there's people jostling this way and that, and she said, I can't see the stairs.
And there was all of these people around you, and you can't do anything about it, and your body's just not wanting it to. I couldn't do what I wanted to do with my body.
And so we went to the optician to see what was going wrong. He found difficulty in Catherine trying to track a light that was moving across a range of view, and said, I think you should go and see a doctor.
The doctor hadn't had a clue. Absolutely no. The doctor said, I was just imagining it'll go.
We were checking things like it's not a tumour, it's not anything wrong with the optical nerve, it's not detached from the back of your brain, but what they did notice was the brain was a different size from what it should be in a normal adult. I'm not really sure that they said there was anything they could do. There were some medications that people with Alzheimer's had, and of course they would try that, but I think both of us knew there wasn't a U-turn out of this.
But then you're left with a body that it's like a new one, but it's old.
It's not memory that's the classical issue. It's more a dyspraxia. It's solving problems that are in front of her she can't do, and seeing things come into her field of vision. She'll just completely ignore them.
You cry sometimes, a lot of the time, and because you can't do anything with it. I couldn't do it on my own, and I thought once or twice, and I'll say, I would stop it, but then I couldn't. I was given a life, and I was trying to make it the best I can. It's difficult, but it would be an awful lot worse if I didn't have somebody else.
You have to be tough. You can't wallow about in self-pity. I'm not helping anybody by just being a coward or anything like that. I need to be for Catherine, and I think for the kids' life, and for my life, we need to be as proactive as we can be.
you have to work with yourself mentally, emotionally, and it will help if you have somebody beside for you. My problems are, I don't know who's going to support my husband, and that's the one thing.
I think we've had great support from Alzheimer Scotland. We know a bit more about Catherine's condition from a layman's perspective and not, gobbledygook from consultants.
She's made me realise I can get on with my life, not to, oh dear. It's a good wee baby, because I think without Julie, I wouldn't be here in a lot of way, because she has emotionally, she's got through along with me and John to where I am now.
I think they've gone that extra mile, to make sure that you understand what the situation is and that there's a network of help if you want it, but give you the confidence to go on.
As your life changes, it could be bad if you made it now, but you've got to make a new life, I think.
We were in a Christmas pantomime, and although Catherine never sang or anything, under a spotlight, she was there on stage. It doesn't matter that she's, got what she has. We can still go on holidays. We're not pretending there's nothing wrong, but we have to still live your life.
CADASIL stands for cerebral autosomal dominant arteriopathy with subcortical infarcts and leukoencephalopathy. It's a condition that we've recognised for quite some time, but didn't have a name applied to it correctly or a genetic diagnosis applied correctly until really the early to mid-1990s. So we've known for a long time that people with problems affecting the small blood vessels supplying the brain, most commonly things like high blood pressure or diabetes, can result in repeated small strokes and damage which produces a form of dementia, which we would call vascular dementia. And it was recognised that in some rare cases, you would find individuals within a family who clearly had some form of inherited vascular dementia, where the condition would crop up, sometimes at a younger age than typical, sometimes not, but without the high blood pressure, without the diabetes, without the risk factors that you would normally associate with it.
Well, I met Marion when we were 15 in a disco called the Picassos that used to be in Buchanan Street. We just blossomed and we got married in October, 46 years together. To be diagnosed with CADASIL for about 5 years, but I'm quite sure it happened a long time before that. And she had her first stroke about 2010, then a second one shortly after it. At the beginning of it, I wasn't too sure what was happening with her. It was very, very hard to understand her behaviour. We went to Southern General, she was kept in for a few days, and that's when Professor Moore came into our lives, who has been a good help.
We get depression as a common feature, and we get a different type of problem with thinking. So it's not quite the same as other types of dementia in how it presents. A lot of people will present with slowness of being able to do things, and that may be both mental slowness and physical slowness.
You've got to prompt her all the time, and that can be frustrating.
I think we don't yet fully understand the disease, therefore we don't have any specific treatments. And most of the things that we do are based around preventing strokes, stopping smoking, on exercising, doing all the stuff that you're usually told to do to look after yourself. Typically people come to attention with CADASIL maybe in the early to mid-40s, and the majority of them have children who are in their teens or their early 20s at that age.
I've also found out that two of my other sons have got CADASIL. My middle boy David and my youngest one Christopher. But I'll just tell them to lead their lives as normal as they can. It can happen to anybody, but they're more apt to have a stroke before the average person who might call it that way.
We generally give people medication to thin the blood. Aspirin or clopidogrel or similar medications are commonly given because most of the strokes that happen occur because you block off a blood vessel. The main features that you get from a clinical point of view include other interesting things like migraine.
She did suffer from a lot of migraines, and funny enough, so is my other two boys. But it's in Marion's genes, because you found out that her fathers had strokes and heart attacks. Our two brothers have had strokes and heart attacks.
And then there's the wider family, because if you've got it, then each of your siblings has a 50% chance that they have it, and cousins and aunts and uncles.
I think sometimes when he comes in and see his mammy deteriorating, that's what I've got to look forward to. I said, no, you have no. No, you have no. You're stronger than your ma. You'll know what to avoid. Well, Marion was diagnosed with the Cadicel when she was 55, applying for poll tax, different things like this. She's too young for this, she's too young for that.
When it happens at a young age, they impose a lot of burdens on the families, on the communities, and on all the services round about them, which are not currently very well understood.
We need to pay for him, that's the bottom line. Even I told you earlier on about the social work here, you know, that's going to cost me about £100 a week to get people in to look after Marion, because she's at a young age.
It's not a disease that's solely of young people, nor is it the case that people who are affected young and will necessarily develop severe problems at a young age. They may live for many, many years with no significant problems.
Alzheimer Scotland, they have been really good with us, because they seem to know what I was looking for before I even asked the question. It just made me feel very, very welcome. And the staff in here are second to none. I can't thank them enough, and I know they're there now, and I'm not afraid to ask for help as before I was. I try to keep it as light as possible, but sometimes it's hard, to be truthful with you. You know, sometimes you think, I don't want to be here. But I'd never walk out. You know, I'll be there forever to support her anyway, you know.
Ian had been out in the Gulf soldering, and a mutual friend of ours asked us to crew on their yacht, and that's how we met. And the rest is history, as they say. There were things when I look back that I can see that his confidence had gone, and that was a tough one. And then slowly he thought he was losing his memory. And he actually took himself to the clinic in Bearsden, and he was really wringing his hand so tightly, trying to find the word. And that's when I realized there was something really radically wrong. He was very strong, and you know, he was only in his 60s. He would walk over the hills, he never got lost. But there was also a personality change. He was being quite tricky. After they'd done the isotope tests and the scans, there was no question about it that he had Pick's disease. He didn't become mute for 5 years. And we had a few episodes of 3 o'clock in the morning when he thought he'd go down to the hairdresser's. That was late on, though, in the disease. And that's when I had to lock the doors and not let him out. You think you can manage. So I did 4 years alone. Then eventually the time came when I think I was not able to cope anymore and so tired. He was up every half an hour at night, and I managed for 18 months, and then after that I realized I couldn't go on any longer. And so I rang Erskine, and they found a place for him. It was very hard to give him up. I didn't want to. I would like to have looked after him right through.
We initially met in '86. Then Jan disappeared to Australia for 6 months. She came back, and then we've been together ever since. One of our main hobbies for many years was diving. Unfortunately, because of a condition, that's out now. My wife has always enjoyed getting outside into the countryside. As well as that, we both got into paragliding. Again, that's something else that's gone by the wayside. When we first noticed symptoms in my wife. She would have been 52. She was a senior IT engineer, and she was very good at her job. She'd never had a problem with any of her exams, and then the first instance was she failed one. After that, she went to a GP and reported memory issues.
Usually for some of the rarer types of frontotemporal dementia, like semantic dementia, there will be a neuropsychologist who would be involved, and that's a psychologist who specialises in these type of conditions, and the tests are quite different from the test that we use with somebody who they suspected of having Alzheimer's disease.
We saw a neurologist in the Southern General, and he mentioned the word frontotemporal dementia, which to that date I'd never heard of, and which I still never had. Since then, her memory has faded significantly. She struggles with words, with the meaning of words. She struggles with people. Her behaviour has changed. She routinely tells me that she's stupid, but she's not. She never has been. It's just her way of expressing the frustration in her condition. One of the biggest drawbacks in my life now is I don't have someone who I can bounce ideas off. I've always had someone who I can discuss options. Jan just doesn't understand. It puts a strain on life. She's still my wife and I still love her, but she's hard work.
Met my wife, who's English, around 1960 or so, and we married in 1961 and we stayed in Canada until 1972. She went to university as a mature student, became a speech and language therapist. The first signs, although we didn't recognise them, were about 4 years ago. If you were, say, on holiday in a hotel, she'd turn left instead of right, or right instead of left. On the computer, where she had been really excellent, she started to lose information. It became obvious there was something wrong. So I arranged for her to have their memory test, and lo and behold, she passed the memory test with flying colours. Dr. Sayenko then arranged for a scan, and he informed me a couple of days later that she had Pick's disease, frontotemporal lobe dementia. And since then there's been a steady deterioration. She can't dress herself, can't wash herself, stopped cooking. So suddenly at 76 years of age, you've got to find out how the washing machine works. It's a bit stupid, but that's a fact. Taking to where it is now, there's no conversation as such, there's no continuity. When you're living with someone who was a professional, who was intelligent, I think that's the hardest thing.
Such an emotional thing when you're told, and you have to go through it.
For frontotemporal dementia, currently there's no treatments for the condition itself.
The neurons in the brain start to wither away, and therefore the brain shrinks.
Treatments that are given for Alzheimer's disease, for example, are counterproductive in many cases.
Slowly his word bank was going, and he used to tap his head and say, "I've got a terrible problem in my head."
I think she's now dysphasic, where that's just that they don't have the memory, they don't have the speech, or they start and forget what they're saying.
Her tastes have changed significantly.
He wants to eat all the time.
One of the things that she will do now is go hunting for food, and anything that she can find is fair game.
You come into the room and you'd be walking through a sea of cornflakes, but anyway, that was okay. And I felt that was something he could do for himself.
Having to lose your temper at times to get them to take their medication, which isn't good for them, and it's certainly not good for me.
You're trying to get them to do something and they won't do it, and all this sort of thing. That's where the personality change comes in.
Lift your foot and there's no response, or lift your arms, there is no response.
With Pick's, They are so concentrated in their fixation on what they want to do that you're not going to bend them or change them.
I got her to stop driving before she became a danger to herself or anybody else on the road. She handled the car okay, but she didn't know where she was going.
I took the chip out of his key and left him with the key so that he could open the car and lock it, but at least he couldn't drive it.
We've had trouble getting her into the shower.
They can actually be frightened of the water coming straight at them. Now, he was one who always showered, and that was really very strange to me, that water, you know, should be frightening to him.
He's a great guy. He is a great guy. I stayed friends with him all those years, and about 9 years ago we started dating.
Originally when I met her, I gave her a job with us over in Babcock's in Renfrew. She was working in the office with us as office manageress, and we were all happy.
And we were looking forward to a really nice future, which is still okay, but it's not the one that we thought we were going to have.
I've worked offshore for years. My role was coatings and insulation inspection.
It's easier for him to say it wasn't suiting me anymore, I've retired, I'm not doing that anymore, rather than I was diagnosed with a condition that makes me unable to do my job.
He carried out a scan on me and he showed me on his computer, you know, that side of the brain's perfect. He says, but the front there seems to be disappearing a wee bit. And I get a wee bit disappointed when I says, well, can we not fix it? He says, well, I don't know if we've got a resolution for that. I says, well, that's not making me a happy man then.
At the very beginning, it's very mild, very slight, wee things that might make you go, what was that? And then you would just discount it, because we all have foibles, we all have things that we do that are odd. He was very aggressive when he was drunk, he was being very unkind to people. These things are not his norm.
He had difficulty finding our new house, which I thought was quite unusual. And then the phone calls started. And I was getting an average between 40 and 50 phone calls a day and 7 or 8 visits.
I think it affected Karen and my sister a wee bit. They were a wee bit concerned about me, but I told them I'm fine.
So we go to the GP, and then from the GP to the specialist. We then had an MRI scan, and he also saw a neuropsychologist.
The diagnosis of frontotemporal dementia, to me, was absolutely devastating. It was shock, it was fear, it was almost, there was panic, a terrible panic.
I personally thought dementia and Alzheimer's were the same thing. I don't now.
When you spoke to people, it was a blank stare, quite understandably so. So I described it as a very rare form of dementia.
Everyone thinks somebody with dementia doesn't know who they are, doesn't know where they're going, and doesn't know what's happening today. Franny does.
I'm challenging it all the time. And that's what I call retaining positivity. And that means just stay in the moment. You know, I don't sit there slavering or worrying or whatever. I just sit there and say no.
There is no medication. There won't be any medication in that they can do nothing for them.
And it's back to what I call basic psychology. And it's, you know, if somebody's sitting there trying to annoy you, you just shut them down. And it's the same as this. If this tries to go for me, I just go away. I'm not putting up with it. Simple as that.
He does fight it. We watch him making adjustments. So to make adjustments, I think he has to know what's happening.
He puts the screens, 2 concrete walls and a nuclear bunker up to avoid discussing it with me. I think he's protecting me.
He's a clever, clever man, and he knows, but we don't talk about his limitations, so that's hard.
He knows there's something seriously wrong, but he's, as far as I'm concerned, now I can see he's in denial, and I've got absolutely no problem with that.
Take the wee dog walkies, do crosswords, watch telly sometimes, and then that's about it.
He tells me that he's no different, that he's exactly the same as he was 20 years ago.
But the reason I do the crosswords is it keeps that working. It keeps me right in position when I'm contesting my FTD.
The biggest difference from his behaviour is his lack of empathy, completely detached from any emotion. From a relationship point of view, he's my one and only, but there's no relationship left. There's none. I care for him, I love him deeply, and I will always care for him, but there's nothing in return.
He is my first call in the morning, and he's my last call at night. The standing joke is he calls me Mrs. Doyle.
When I used to visit my sister, she'd make me tea and biscuits. I'd call her Mrs. Doyle. She's now known as Doily.
He sends me texts, "Morning Doily, please call me." And when he answers the phone, it's, "Right Doily, how are you?"
Because I class that as HMP Strathcona.
Yes, I'm the jailer, and he lives at HMP Strathcona. Did he tell you that as well?
She tries to catch me eating biscuits and drinking tea all the time. And she's no happy with me eating biscuits.
I'm the head teacher, I'm the mum, I'm the person at the top at the moment. Yeah, I'm the jailer. Yeah, that's me. I keep him trapped. He's stuck.
Every time I stand up, the camera kicks in. Where do you think you're going?
Oh yeah, we have Franny Cam. With his permission.
Oh, that's the camera she planked in the living room.
I was stressed. I was micromanaging him from a distance. So I would phone him at lunchtime and interrogate the poor soul. So we have Franny Cam now. And we made a laugh about it, and we realised very early on that that was going to be our coping strategy.
My mantra from the outset for Francis has been, as long as he's safe and he's calm, I'm fine.
So he was 57 at the point of diagnosis, which makes it quite difficult because all the care is geriatric care. At 58 years old, he's not earning any more money. We're now on benefit. So for 3 months, I kind of sat and thought, what the heck are we doing now?
And then I can say quite confidently, Alzheimer Scotland stepped in, and Susan Rendell and the team, and that made a difference. And the difference was colossal.
I got on well with Susan, Lynn, and the counsellor, Anne Davey.
And Susan came into our lives, and without being sycophantic at all, she saved us. She took us from a horrific place to a place of hope. We have everything we need at Alzheimer Scotland, and yeah, we wouldn't be without them.
We are constantly being bombarded with media about dementia, about investing money in research for dementia. It's time the talking stopped and the action took place.
The 1 year post-diagnostic guarantee that the Scottish Government introduced a couple of years ago, that should mean that somebody with a diagnosis of frontotemporal dementia gets at least 1 year's support from a named individual. Now that could be a community psychiatric nurse, or it could be what we call a link worker.
You need other people around you. You need to be able to talk about it and find people who've had the same experience.
Very supportive. I would give praise to all of them.
I can't thank them enough, and I know they're there now, and I'm not afraid to ask for help as before I was.
If they can keep being there for people in any little way.
You know you've always got somebody to fall back on, which, believe you me, although you might not use it that often, it's great to know it's there.
They always work with you and bring you up. And when they bring you up, that kicks in perfectly. You know, you go away happy, and you know you're happy because they've helped you.
Alzheimer Scotland team are possibly the most compassionate, caring, decent human beings I have ever encountered. They are an oasis, and they're a lifeline to us.